Hi, my name is Ivan Beliveau, and I'm the host and producer of Right to Know. And today we're going to talk about a subject that's very interesting in the state of New Hampshire. We're going to talk about climate change. It's in the news all the time, and there's many ways to look at this. But we have with us Mark McPeak, and Mark is the director of the UUSC Just Democracy program. And we're going to talk about climate change from different perspectives. We're going to talk about the way it affects New Hampshire, and there's actually an initiative in New Hampshire to take a look at this. So I would like to introduce Mark McPeak. Welcome to Right to Know.
Thank you, Ivan.
And why don't you take a moment and introduce yourself and say who you are, and perhaps even what UUSC Just Democracy means, what that stands for.
I'd be happy to. Thank you for inviting me. Mark McPeak is my name. I'm the executive director of UUSC Just Democracy. Our organization is an issue advocacy organization based here in New Hampshire, but hoping to expand beyond New Hampshire in the future. We're focused on two issues, climate change and the war in Iraq. And our purpose is to provide a space for people from progressive religious communities to extend their activism into legislative and electoral realms so that they can get involved not as part of their church or part of their social justice committees or what have you, but as part of their own agenda as progressive people of faith, to engage in advancing justice here in our state. And as I said, we're focused on those two issues, climate change and the war in Iraq. We are a companion organization to the UU Service Committee, which is based in Cambridge. So we were set up to enable activists to work more in the legislative and electoral realms that they couldn't working from the UU Service Committee in Cambridge. So we've been in existence for about 6 months now. I'm based in Durham. Before that, I was with the UU Service Committee in Cambridge, and before that, about 25 years overseas, working on sustainable development projects.
Outstanding. What does UU stand for?
Unitarian Universalist.
That's a plug. I'm trying to plug our church.
Just as the American Friends Service Committee, which many people know here in New Hampshire, is associated in the past with the Quaker movement, the UU Service Committee works for justice, for social justice, associated and flowing from the UU movement, of which you're a member here in the church in Manchester. Yeah,
there is a Unitarian Universalist church in Manchester at the corner of Prospect and Union Street, 669 Union Street, and it's a very liberal, progressive church, and I wanted to give that plug.
That's great. And we work with people from many congregations, UU and UCC, the Congregationalists here in the state of New Hampshire. Trying to advance these issues.
And there's a huge congregational church in Manchester, and there's one just down the street in Goffstown.
Right.
Well, what is this climate change forum that just happened recently? Could you say something about that?
I'd be happy to. It was on the 28th of October. We organized, a group of organizations with my organization in the lead, organized a sort of pre-electoral candidate discussion or campaign discussion about climate change. We invited 4 distinguished panelists to talk about various aspects of climate change. We invited all of the federal campaigns to send representatives to this, and we invited the public. It was held at UNH, sponsored by UUSC Just Democracy, my organization, by Oxfam America and CARE International, and then by 3, the other co-sponsors were from the university. So there was the campus ministry, the sustainability office, and the discovery program, which is a general ed program. So those were the 6 organizations that organized this, that set up this forum. And our purpose really was to bring the views of candidates, informed views of candidates, to the attention of the public, because we felt that climate change needed to be an important issue in this election, in this past election.
Sure.
And because of the economic climate we live in, it had really fallen off of the front burner in the discourse of our candidates. We wanted to put it back on the front burner because we think it's very important. Of course, the priority now is our economy, but they're related, as I hope we'll get to.
Yeah.
So we had representatives from the Obama campaign, the McCain campaign. The representative, unfortunately, had a personal issue and couldn't come. But the Sununu and Shaheen campaigns sent representatives, as did the Bradley and Shea Porter campaigns. So we had a really good turnout. We had about 90 people there. The four panelists were Dr. Cameron Wake, who is a climatologist at UNH who studies this issue from a scientific point of view. Nancy Hirschberg, who's the vice president of Stonyfield Farm, to speak on climate change from a business point of view, a New Hampshire business point of view. Roberta Finkelstein, who is the minister of the UU South Church in Portsmouth, to speak on the justice issues. And Dr. Stacy Vandeveer, who is also at UNH, and he spoke on the national security aspects of climate change. So each of those distinguished panelists spoke for a time, and then the campaign representatives made their statements, and then we had a back and forth with the audience. It was really a super evening.
Interesting. Okay, well, I think what we should do is take a look at that clip. But I invite us, before we watch, to look at it in a certain way. And I would like us, and I mean all of us and you, to consider this climate change from this perspective, that there is a moral imperative to really take a look at this, to consider the reality. Now, New Hampshire actually has a climate change policy task force. We're going to talk about that. So it's something our governor is taking a look at this, and there's a task force. And the good news is we're talking ultimately, we're going to end up in talking about alternative energy development, because there's a lot of people who feel that the roadblock to climate change and some alternative energy development is companies, oil companies, I guess, specifically, trying to protect their core business. But one of the points is that this alternative energy development is a win-win. It's a twofer. We not only stop some of the environmental damage, but we create jobs. We have examples of wind farms and different alternative energy development projects that are workable and working in New Hampshire and generating incomes. Not only, of course, the global climate change, whether it's global warming or global cooling. So I invite us to look at this clip from this perspective. So shall we watch it?
Let's do that.
Okay.
We have 1 week to go, decision time, and I'm really glad you're all here. So let me get to the first introduction of our first guest, who's going to lead us on a little lesson of environmental change. Dr. Cameron Wake is considered a national expert on the environment and climate change. Dr. Wake studies regional climate and environmental change through the analysis of ice cores and instrumental records. He's led programs to reconstruct climate change from ice cores recovered from glaciers on the Tibetan Plateau and in the Canadian Arctic. Dr. Wake is also involved in the Air Map project, which seeks to improve understanding of New England's changing climate and air quality. He leads the related Inhale project that's investigating links between air quality and human health right here in New England. As part of the Northeast Climate Impact Assessment, he was co-lead on 2 research papers and a series of reports detailing past and future climate change in the U.S. Northeast. Dr. Wake teaches several classes here at UNH, including Global Environmental Change, Earth System Science, and Climate and Health. He also led a team that produced a design guide for Earth System Science education, which basically summarizes lessons learned from 15 years of NASA-supported education programs. He serves on the UNH Energy Task Force. He's a faculty fellow in the Office of the Vice President for Research and is chair of the Undergraduate Research Conference Planning Committee. He also serves as Chief Scientific Advisor for Clean Air, Cool Planet, a nonprofit organization finding and promoting solutions to global warming. Basically, he's a really smart guy. And I introduce Dr. Wake.
That's your definition of smart, Scott. I'm in a lot of trouble. All right, hopefully our AV is going to work. That's all I have to do. Press the computer.
That's the definition of smart.
Yeah. I'd actually like to start tonight not talking about the science of climate change, but talking about why I believe this is a key moral issue. And I think there's many different dimensions to that, but I just want to share two with you this evening. The first, as was already mentioned, it is those who are most vulnerable